Greetings. I very much regret, Boris and colleagues, that I can't be with you today. This is a significant conference. I know that your Congress will set a path for strengthening the rights, the wages, the safety and the security of work for your members in Russia. There is no doubt that the world is a bleak place for working people. 80% of the world's people have been affected by austerity and it has failed. In addition to the impact of the global crisis, of growth, of unemployment, of inequality, I know that you are very worried about the current state of the impact of sanctions on your economy, on the jobs and the income of working people. We want to see peace on your borders, everywhere around the world. Democracy, freedom of association, peace, these are fundamental values for the global trade union movement, the ITUC family. We also know that your people are very worried about inequality, are very worried about their own job security, because our global poll shows that inequality comes up as one in Russia as being one of the top 5 countries' concerns. We know that in that group of 5 countries and the concern for Russia, those people demand government intervention. In fact, across our global polling, 89% of the world's people want their governments to do more to reduce the inequality between the rich and the poor. The good news is that in Russia, some 91% of people tell us that they understand the role of unions and they support the role of unions for greater equality, for rights for workers. So your job to organise workers has the backing of the Russian people. That doesn't mean, of course, that there isn't a lot of fear, and the confidence that you can provide workers is critical to overcome that fear. In a global context, our front lines are very clear. The Congress of May last year in Berlin gave us a framework that said we must fight slavery. In the 21st century, it's not acceptable that we have modern day slavery. That in the Gulf states, in other countries around the world, that one person, a worker, can be effectively owned by another human being. Their wages, their working conditions, sometimes their very liberty is actually determined by another human being, their employer. We will fight slavery everywhere, beginning in Qatar, but expanding it through any country that thinks they can deny workers fundamental rights to freedom of association, the dignity of a minimum living wage, social protection, and of course the right to collectively bargain. We know that the dominant model of trade is now controlled by very wealthy corporations. Their supply chains are simply a model of exploitation. The world needs a new business model. We want to see every workplace guaranteed fundamental rights. It is not acceptable that the richest countries in the world can't pay minimum wages of more than $177 in places like Cambodia, or $250 in Jakarta, or equivalent salaries in your part of the world. We will demand a fair share for working people, and we will demand an end to the exploitative nature of working conditions in the global supply chains. We want the rule of law. If a multinational company employs people through supply chains in other companies, we want them to be able to be prosecuted in their country of residence. We want to mandate their responsibility for the workforce, the workers who make them wealthy through their production chains, through their supply chains, whether it be in manufacturing, in transport, in logistics, in construction, whatever industry it may be. And of course, we must do something about climate. The imperative to actually save the planet is very simple. It's a very difficult task for union members, but there are no jobs on a dead planet, and we must work to decarbonise. We have a right to know what the government will do to decarbonise our nations, to save the planet for generations to come. We have a right to know what our employers and their industry sectors will do to secure our jobs through a just transition. And we have a right to know where our pension funds are invested if climate risk is going to undermine secure retirement incomes. Around all of this, there are other major issues: the rights of women, the role of women in our economy, unemployment, particularly for women and young people, but also women in our unions, women in leadership, migration. We're facing the biggest refugee crisis since World War II. Migration is a major issue everywhere, and I know it is in Russia. These and other issues can only be fought and won if, in fact, we are prepared to organise, to build the power of workers. That's our mandate from Congress. We will organise, we will build the power of workers, we will fight for freedom of association, for democracy, for peace, and indeed for the dignity of decent work. I wish you well. I look forward to the outcomes. I know that as members of a union committed to the values that I've outlined, then your deliberations this week will be strong. They'll be about the future of Russia, about the future of workers in Russia, but they'll also be a contribution to decent work and the dignity of just workplaces, of fair wages, of social protection, our fundamental rights for the world more broadly. We're proud to have you as part of the ITUC family. Solidarity.